Welcome to In the Zone, brought to you by U.S. Construction Zone, bringing you strategies for success with construction innovators and change makers, including In the Zone peer-nominated national award winners. Here are your hosts, Jeremy and Valerie Owens.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to In the Zone. I am Valerie Owens.
I am Jeremy Owens. Thank you so much for being here.
We are so excited today. Our guest, Rich Noonan, is a TV producer. He's created the best of the best videos for businesses like ours and across the nation.
Yes, and to be accurate, it's the best television, just to make sure we're accurate.
Oh, best of the best television.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. So we talked a lot about reviews. Mm-hmm. And so Valerie got something in the news. So what's new?
Yeah. So we all know, as modern day human beings, how often we check reviews before we do pretty much anything. I mean, think of, probably today you have looked at some type of review of some kind. I know I've been on Yelp already twice.
I have not, to be honest, but I appreciate your sentiment.
Yes.
No, I mean, I think it's crazy that Rich was mentioning that it could be a doctor's office or a dentist now, and it's going into every industry. Like, I don't know what industry it's not in. I mean, probably doctors now too, right? Like, you can actually review
You can
people,
rate, review, right.
Which it's good and very bad too. It's kind of scary that you can review a person, because it makes you feel like, oh crap, we're on this rating systems. I don't want people to rate me personally. If it's my business, it's different. But
right, and that'll be one of the things we talked to Rich about is the benefits of online reviews. How can we get away from them, or is it something that is beneficial to us as consumers? Bad stuff and all.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say for businesses, it's good because homeowners and clients can really see businesses. Do they have integrity? Do they have character? Mm-hmm. I think they're great for that reason. I think that where it goes from here is scary because it seems like it can't go more. Like, it can't be more powerful than it is right now. Or can it?
So in what ways, as a business owner, in what ways has it been beneficial to you and what ways has it been negative?
I think it's super beneficial for us because we lead with integrity and we will do what we say we're going to do. And if something goes wrong, we're going to fix it. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's where a lot of contractors struggle, is that they get prideful and then they lose their way with, like, hey, we have to sell through this. Like, mm-hmm. This is a problem. Mm-hmm. And then we have two roads. We can either go to the path of fixing it and, let's just get a decent review and move on, or you go the path of pride and you dig your heels in. And then from there, it's usually a bad review. It's usually someone saying, I'm going to get my attorney. Right. And it's like, we never want to go that path. I'm not saying it never has, because sometimes we get so frustrated. But I think people lose the point is you have to sell through it. We're still selling. You're selling all the way through the job, mm-hmm. all the way until you collect the final check, and really until you get that final review, you're still selling. You're not stopping. Mm-hmm. And so I think that it's good for a business like ours. I don't know, like I said, I don't know how much more powerful it can get, and I don't know what that looks like, because it just seems like it's as powerful as getting a referral from our parents or from a neighbor. So that's a little strange.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think when you speak of the power of it, it can be frightening in some ways, because you oftentimes will deal with customers who are not looking out for your best interest, obviously, and they are biased. They're not seeing the whole picture, but at the same time, it really has to reach a certain point of maybe miscommunication before it gets to that level where they're feeling like, I've got to let the whole world know that this company. So when you say it's frightening or where does it stop, I think in a lot of ways, for me at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think in a lot of ways that it protects consumers. I think that if you were to look at it big picture, it's advantageous to consumers.
Yes.
Difficult. You're going to have some rogue reviews every now and then.
Sure.
But
yeah, no, I think it's on the whole, I think it's beneficial. I think the part that I have struggled with is that when businesses are used to having fake reviews, they have fake people, and then also you have homeowners that are, holding you hostage for a review, or they're saying, I'm going to give you a bad review if you don't. That's scary. And I have seen that, not necessarily in my business, but I've seen it for my peers where they say, you are going to do this.
Right.
Or,
yeah.
And that to me is where it's gone too far. I think the review is supposed to be an overall description of the business, how my experience was. It's not supposed to be like, hey, let's try to get an extra whatever out of this business. And I have heard of that. And that's where I think that it gets a little slippery.
I think that we also are, we're lucky that we're able to have people like Rich Noonan in this industry, because you do have somebody who's objective. He's coming in and actually investigating companies, and he's going to every different resources. His job and his reputation depends on them going after companies that are reputable.
Yeah.
He can't let anything slip through the cracks. So for him, it's so nice when he chooses a company such as yours, or really any in the industry, because you have somebody who's done the investigating. They haven't looked at one review and gone, oh, wow, this company, they're not holding it together. He's able to look at it and find out what happened, and really look at the foundation and the background of the company and make a determination. So how lucky are we to have somebody like him?
No, I think the cream rises to the crop.
Yeah.
I think with stuff like that, I think that's why I've never shied away from it. It's always been a powerful thing for us, and it helps customers find us online. It helps people get a good idea of how we work, and how present we are on a job site. They hear similar themes, like we're very responsive and our communication, and so like you want the common theme to keep showing up, so that you really attract the kind of customer that you want, and the people who are wanting detail in their proposal or wanting a lot of communication. Then they're like, ooh, honey, look at 3G.
Yeah.
They're pretty good. They might cost a little bit more, but that's okay. So I mean, I think it's going to be a great conversation with Rich, because he's got a perspective that we don't have, and he's looking at businesses all day long, and really contractors all day long. So it'll be cool to get some insight from him.
Yeah.
All right, on to Rich Noonan. Rich Noonan is an 8-time Emmy Award-winning investigative reporter who started in television news reporting on the Philadelphia mob, and started his own production company called Rich Noonan Productions and Best of the Best Television. He has been investigating and awarding Best of the Best businesses in construction for several decades, and we look forward to gaining some valuable insight from Rich Noonan. Thanks so much for being here, Rich.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy and Valerie. It's exciting to be with you.
Yes, thank you so much. So I guess I wanted to just get started with a little bit of your background. I know you started in the TV side, so what made you switch from TV to doing your own thing?
Well, it's a good business story. I got fired, and when you get fired and your wife is pregnant at 40 years old, you better find a job. So TV news is a lot like professional baseball. You start in the minor leagues and you hope to work your way up. Lots of people get married and stop along the way, but I always wanted to get to Philadelphia, my hometown, which is the 4th largest market. And to get there, I had to work my way up through 4 or 5 markets and small towns. And once I did that, then I got on TV in Philadelphia, which was my dream job. And I was there for about 13 years. Then my boss got fired, my co-anchor got fired, and I got fired. Not that we did anything wrong. Sometimes that just happens in big market TV. And so I started my own production company because I really didn't want to take a job in a smaller market and see my trajectory go right down the tubes, which is what happens to fired anchormen. So started my own company, and that was in 2000, and never looked back.
Wow.
It could be kind of a brutal business, that industry, can it?
Yeah, it's really brutal. I mean, I really loved it, and there are days still when I miss it, when there's a big news story, but I don't miss the constant, travel and being on call and just the pressure of looking at the ratings every day and living and dying by the ratings. And then if your boss gets canned, you get canned, and that's just the way it works. There was a real purge in that industry right when I got canned of getting rid of anybody who made a lot of money. And it was like a gray-haired, anybody with gray hair was a dead man. I was 40, but I had gray hair. So the gray hair helped me probably in my early career, but it hurt me at the end. So that's what happened. And then we were replaced by a lot younger guys who made, 1/5 of what we made because the piece of the pie in TV news was being cut up so much smaller because there were so many more channels. And
Right.
the decline has continued ever since. The viewership has just continued to decline.
Yeah, it's difficult.
So many ways to ingest news these days, right?
Right,
Online.
exactly.
Yeah.
So was getting into production ever a goal of yours? Or why hadn't you started that direction?
It really wasn't, Valerie. I was sitting there and I had this job where I was making huge money and I had a big mortgage and a Lexus and a Mercedes. I'd spent more money than I should have. And I was thinking, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
And the only thing I really knew how to do was tell stories. And I always thought to myself, companies all have great stories and their video is all boring corporate video. It's horrible. And if we could just apply the rules of TV news to corporate video, it would be great. And very few people did that. To this day, very few companies do that. I always say if 60 Minutes would want to come in and do a story on U.S. construction zone and you knew it was going to be a positive story, wouldn't that be awesome?
Right.
And it just doesn't happen. Corporate video looks so much different than TV. So if you can incorporate TV, which is why I initially named my company Best of the Best Television, because I want my stories to look like television, then I think you have something to sell. And the first couple stories I did, I just did them and sent them in. And these people were like, wow, this looks like a TV news story. And that's how it was born.
Yeah, I love that. So how did you get started in the area of construction? Why construction and investigating? I know you mentioned that it was.
Yeah, I did it. I needed a new roof, and I was looking online, and I saw a company that had 56 complaints with the Better Business Bureau, but they had an A+ rating. And I turned to my wife and I said, if we just did our own investigations, I think we would really find the truth out here about these companies. Because it didn't really, even back then when I started, we didn't have all the internet tools we have now. But it wasn't that hard. I'd done plenty of investigative reporting in my career on TV, so I knew where to call and where to look.
Right.
And I just felt like if you did a video on a company without telling the company, it would have a lot more credibility than anything else out there. And, the first ones I did, people bought them. And the next thing I knew, I had a business. So it wasn't a grand plan. I've never written a business plan. 20 years later, I still don't have a business plan. I'm not a business guy. I'm a TV news producer and reporter. And I'm naturally curious. How did people start a business? How did billionaires become billionaires? All that stuff intrigues me. And I just see every place I look, I see great stories that aren't being told.
Yeah. Yeah. I always thought you went into construction reviewing because it was closest to the mob.
It was. I learned a lot about that from the mob. I did have a long history covering the Philadelphia mob. And luckily, while I was in Philadelphia, they had a real brutal mob war. And they were shooting at each other like crazy. So it was huge news. And that was my beat. I was the crime beat guy. And it was I learned a lot about construction because they were so into concrete, and I learned all about how they broke ankles to get things done, how they bribed city council people, and covered lots of trials where I heard all about that. But that's not what got me interested. I did a video on a roofing company in Pittsburgh, Ireland Contracting. Very smart guy, Gary Ireland, his wife Diane, real smart business people. And they said, you're crazy. You should do every roofer in the country because roofers are risk takers or they wouldn't be roofers. They don't do any marketing. They don't care about it in most cases. And you know what? The guy was right. I started doing a lot of roofers. And then I started doing home builders and remodelers and HVAC people. And they're small business owners like we are, and they don't have time to go out and have a video produced. It's a big pain in the neck Most video producers don't know how to sell, and they don't understand people's time. So they make it a big, hard production. You guys get emails all the time. Hey, we're a great video production company. Here's our process. I don't know about you, but I don't have time for the process. Just if I could get a great video done by a professional broadcaster laid up on a silver platter, I'm taking it.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of what it is.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I mean, my experience being 3 generations in remodeling, what we've noticed too with the trend of online reviews, like when we first started out 15 years ago, it was just starting. You had Yelp and you had, very little. You had a little bit of Google,
business.
but you didn't really have Facebook, reviews, and Angie's List and all these things started cropping up. And before you know it, now it is like skyrocketing. And I have said this on another podcast that I think online reviews are as important as a review from a neighbor or even a family member, because even if you get that review from a neighbor or a family member, I bet you still go online and check it out. You're not just going to take, I know I'm not going to take Val's dad's recommendation every time. I'm going to go and check it out just to make sure. And so I know you're seeing this trend too. I guess, why do you think it started, and where does it go from here? I guess it can't really even go further, can it?
Well, what's your typical demographic? What's your age group that you sell to?
Ours is typically baby boomer, so we're 50s, 60s.
Right.
Probably be our average. Yeah.
Well, I look at my mom, who's 87. She's on Facebook every day. So it's a very good question. Why is it so important, and what is the trend? It's just going to get more important, because the fact that my mom and all of her old lady friends are on that Facebook every day too, that tells you how savvy they are. I say to my college-age daughters, I have 2 daughters, one's just graduated from college, one's still in college. They say, hey, Dad, let's go to this restaurant. And the first thing my wife and I will say is, did you check the reviews? So it intrigues me that kids who are 20, they're like, oh, yeah, the reviews are great. Okay, sure. Did you check? And so I don't care what demographic you're in, they're checking reviews. So our demographic, yours and mine are the same. They have matured for the last 10, 15 years of getting comfortable, knowing that all this information is at their fingertips. And so as it comes up, younger people are just, it's an automatic thing. They all check reviews. They all, their trend. So I think you're 100% correct. And there's where I look at websites every day, trying to decide if this company is going to be a best of the best candidate. And the ones who have great reviews first attract me. But then all the other things that go along with it. Okay, you've got great reviews. Well, you've attracted somebody to your website. What do they see when they get to your website? I mean, I'm just as guilty as the shoemaker. My website's very basic, not great, but I'm in a weird position because I'm doing a business where I am supposed to be objectively reviewing people, which is what I do. So I can't act like I'm selling videos to every company, because I'm not. Right. So mine's a little different, but I still have to have that presence, and I know my customers go to that website. But any other normal business that isn't an objective journalist and is trying to sell with a website, it's amazing what I see, guys. I see, websites where the copyright at the bottom is from 2010. So that website hasn't been touched since 2010. I see construction companies, renovation companies that have a bunch of photographs of messes, of construction zones, roofing contractors with junk all over the people's yard. Don't show any construction video or photos. Don't show horrible videos that you shot yourself. You're better off not to have any video than have horrible video.
Yeah.
Don't put your little kids on there saying my dad's business is great. That almost never works, and it kind of looks hokey. Don't try to project yourself and turn into a professional broadcaster when you're a roofing contractor. God knows I couldn't put on a roof. So those are the things I see. Misspellings, too many words. Remember, fewer words is better. And, we all listen to consultants and SEO people and web people. Well, to me, the proof's in the pudding. Did the thing that you're selling me make me money? If not, I'm not that interested in it. And you usually can find out real quick. We all get told that this thing's going to make us a bunch of money. So the one thing I do know is clean up the website, pay attention to the website. All these other people are trying to sell you all these ancillary things. I had a guy yesterday, I'm trying to sell him a video. He's talking all about the ROI, return on investment. He does all these analytics. I'm like, okay, well, how could it be a bad thing to have my great 3.5-minute video out in the world saying nice things about you? So you can sit and wring your hands about ROI all you want. I was in TV for 30 years. Those sales guys would tell everybody, oh, wait till you see the ROI. Well, invariably, if that car dealer didn't get a bunch of business from running ads on our station, he went to another station or he got off TV. So remember that. We get bombarded with stuff. But if we just keep our own house clean, what's our online brand? How often do you go to your own website? I'm guilty too. Sometimes I don't go to my website for a month. Then I look at it and think, I just better make sure it's still hot, it's still on.
Yeah.
So think about those
That's
things.
a good point.
And go through the website and look at the images you're putting out. Do they make you look good? Do you have a bunch of scruffy workers on your website, photographs of guys who look like they're criminals? You don't want that. And that's what I see it every day.
Yeah, the other thing too that we talked about on our pre-call here was like responding to reviews. What's your advice there?
Absolutely.
I mean, there's so many reviews now out there. How do you respond to them? And even if they're bad, do you respond to them?
I think first of all, there's this school of thought, don't respond. I think that's such a mistake. I say, because I know for myself, if I had somebody angry enough at me to post a bad review, I couldn't sleep at night. First of all, I'd work damn hard to make sure that didn't happen. But once it happened, I would assume that customer would have to be a wacko, crazy, or they wouldn't have posted something because I know I wouldn't let that happen. I would have to respond and let the reader know through the facts that, I tried. I just couldn't make this person happy. But to just let it lay there, and it's one of the criteria that when I look at, well, is this company really the best of the best in an area? If they have one complaint on the Better Business Bureau, I get real nervous. If they have two, I usually pass. And unless the company's got 5,000 reviews, then I get it. Right. But most companies don't. Most small companies have, between 50 and 250 reviews. And some of my companies have 25 great reviews, but they're a company that builds, a multi-million-dollar house. They're not going to get a bunch of reviews. But, do not just let it lay there. Work really hard to make sure that it never gets to that point. Usually it's the company has done something wrong, in my view. Somewhere along the line, the communications were poor, whatever it is. Do what you have to do. Spend what you have to spend to get Mr. and Mrs. Jones not to write that bad review, because it matters. Let me tell you.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, just think of how much that bad review costs.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, everyone gets all butthurt about the actual bad review, but then how many people are like you or another homeowner are going to look at that review and pass, even calling you, just because of that review. So I think there's just in the moment, it's heated, it's prideful, and all these things happen to a contractor and an owner.
That's it.
But if you can't see down the road a little bit, then you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see go ahead, Valerie.
Oh, go ahead.
No, my really smart clients who are very good at marketing, I notice the common denominator when they get a bad review is they say, I'm the owner of the company, Rich Noonan. Here's my number. Call me. I will fix this problem. And you could just tell, a lot of times it's your truck cut me off. You may be a good construction company, but your truck just cut me off on the highway. Well, the temptation is to just blow that off. But to me, it gives the person who owns the company so much more, it makes me trust them and like them so much more if they respond and say, I'm so sorry, things happen, give me the time, the date, and call me directly, and I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. That's all.
And how powerful that is. I think so many times, when we look at reviews and you'll see that the company's responded, but it'll be a very canned response, almost like an automated. And, that to me is just as bad as the bad review. It's like, well, you took the time to post this, but you didn't make it personal. You didn't validate their frustration. So that in itself can be as damaging, I feel.
Yeah, I think it's cool that you could see like the heart and the integrity of a company, and then maybe down to a man or a woman in this case, like you can actually see that they're trying or that they care in just how they respond.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
I love your advice of just saying, hey, call me, and leaving their phone number. I think that's.
Yeah.
Another thing that I think people miss in companies, small companies particularly, is there are stories all around that company that are compelling stories. Often it's the story of a 3-generation company. I love it. When I look at companies, I looked at home renovation, Naples, Florida this week. Because I thought my aunt and uncle live in Naples. There's a lot of rich people in Naples. I bet there's a lot of great companies in Naples. They're spending money. I did a video on a great company. And the woman just called me today and said, why'd you pick us? I said, I'll tell you, one of the reasons why I picked you is because you told your whole story with great quality photographs, not junk. You actually spent some time about how this company started 50 years ago from nothing. And, every employee in your company is a good story. Good, smart companies take their Facebook, which is not a throwaway, and they do a company profile, one paragraph on Mary, who started in the company 32 years ago and now is the vice president. Look around you as a business owner. What are the stories here? Oh, my construction supervisor's son just won the state championship at his Little League baseball. All those things boost the morale of the staff and make people like and trust you. In TV news, we learned, never let the facts get in the way of a good story. Kind of a funny thing, but don't do that. There are stories everywhere in companies. If you just ask yourself, are we telling our story? You're too busy trying to make money to tell your story, but it's simple. It could be a paragraph and a nice picture.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, so back to that previous example of like maybe roofing industry and some of the industries that don't have a lot of presence. How do you go about, being an investigator yourself? How do you go about creating that story? Because you are essentially doing this background before they even see it. Is it sometimes you can't do a video because there's no story to tell?
No, I feel like I could make a wall.
Dang, you're a good storyteller then, Rich.
Well, my wife does a lot of editing for us, and she just yelled at me today. She goes, this story, these guys have such a great story. The guy was a veteran in Vietnam, combat veteran. And, we dug deep before we could find that. Now, maybe he doesn't want that out for some reason, but I sure put it in the story. So, no, Jeremy, to answer your question directly, no. If you are a guy that's been in this business for 35 years, everybody has a story. You may have to find it in the owner's wife's Facebook from 3 years ago, but if you really do the work like we do, because my biggest fear is having my face on some website and the company is a crook and something happens and that company gets indicted and it's a company that I profiled as the best of the best. That would kill me. So believe me, I've been to the point where the story's done. We've spent 8 hours on a story, and then I find something. My editor will find something and say, we don't want to do this company, and we kill it after we wasted a whole day.
Yeah. So
to your point, there is a story everywhere, and you just got to find it. Your company, your family company, is a great example. 3 generations. Well, it jumped out at me when I first saw it.
Right.
And you have photographs, quality photographs of the 3 generations. Very smart. And then if people look at your reviews, they're awesome. So you got to back it up with great work, but you got to know how to tell the story too, because everything these people do, They're driving people to one place, still, the website, because you can't get their phone number any other way, typically. So you go on, if they see something cool on Facebook, they go to the website and get the phone number. The most important thing on that website, in my view, is my video and their phone number. So remember that. A lot of extraneous stuff on website.
Yeah, it's so interesting hearing you talk about it because, you know, when you have somebody like you who's an expert and has been doing this for decades, you make it sound so simple. Like, oh, right, make sure the website works. But yet it's something I think a lot of businesses, there's almost a wall that they want to put up between themselves and between themselves and who they are and then their business. They want to have that disconnect as if it's not professional to show that you're a human being. But that's who, you know, consumers and customers, that's how we build trust with people is seeing, oh, you're a real person. And
Well, Val, so many businesses that I look at get disqualified because I can't tell who the owner is.
Yeah.
I should be able to tell who the owner is in the first 3 inches of the website, in my view.
Right.
If the owner's proud of the team and the work, the owner puts themselves out front.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not, so I love it when I see meet the team and there's the nice photos. I love that because I remember the first house we built, we had a bad builder. We wound up suing the builder, and the builder just was one of those people who could not go into the grocery store for fear that he might see people like us.
Right.
And that just makes me crazy. If you're proud of your company, you're out front. And so that's another little tip.
Yeah.
You know, don't back away. You should be out front. There's nothing wrong with being out front. And don't be afraid to tell people that you started with one truck and you did everything yourself. That's a great story, but so many people don't tell that story. I want to know how the business started.
I think in talking to some of my peers, it's like this weird feeling of like wanting to appear bigger than you are. So it's like sometimes they don't want to put the people or themselves because they're like, we want to feel like we are national. Mm-hmm. You know, instead, what people are, they're forgetting that real people are trying to look at the company. And if you don't see any people, then it's like, who do we hire? We're hiring the business. Mm-hmm. And instead of really, when you hire somebody, you are hiring the person. Like with the salesperson who was there, the company, you are hiring that guy or that girl. And you are, yes, the business supports them, but I think people forget that when they want to appear, you know, giant and massive and all that.
Yeah, well, look at the biggest companies in the world. Look at Elon Musk. You know, I mean, the list is long. These big companies that have huge marketing departments who understand marketing way better than I ever will, they put somebody out front. And, you know, whatever, whoever it is, but they put some human being out front. So, I don't know. I always tell people this. You know, if you know, I get a lot of people say, well, your video was 3.5 minutes long. That's way too long. And I'm like, well, according to who? When Apple puts out a new iWatch or iPhone, they put out a 9-minute video. Well, there's a million good studies that show real buyers will consume many minutes of interesting video. If the video is boring and puts them to sleep, they won't. But somebody who's about to do a renovation project or a home addition or build a $2 million home, they will consume every minute of information you give them. So there's nothing wrong with doing longer form pieces. I think video simply blows away words on a website. Video blows away blogs and vlogs and everything else, whatever it is. Video makes people feel something, makes them laugh, makes them cry, sends a tingle up their spine. Nothing else can do that. And if you can move people, you can make them react. And when they react, that means calling you instead of your competitor. But so few companies do it. I still think we have fewer than 1% of companies have a good video.
Yeah.
It's in its infancy.
So brilliant about your expert knowledge is that for all these years that you were in TV, you knew what moved people, what could sell, the words and the music and, you know, all of the different things that matter. Mm-hmm. So are there any things, I'm curious, you mentioned a few things as far as like, you know, a website or maybe some bad reviews. Is there anything that you go, immediately, yeah, that you are disqualified, will not work, or is it instinctual? Do you have a list of things that eliminate
Well,
people from best of the best?
it's funny, we have an editors meeting in the morning where I'll say, well, here's the story I want to do. And I hear everybody clicking on their computers. Well, what do you think of this? And my most senior guy, who's my age, I'll say, I don't know if these guys, they're great, but I don't know if they would be progressive enough to buy a video down the road,
Mm-hmm.
And he always says, we have this long discussion still, and he'll say, how do you know? And it's so funny. I don't know, Val. I have no science behind it. I just know if you put a good story in front of people, I can't tell you, I have over 950 customers in the US and Canada. And I can't tell you how many of them said, I would have never had a video. I would have never produced a video. That wasn't even in my thought process. But when my wife and I cried when we saw the story that you did about the company that we've built for 35 years with our sweat and tears and blood, how can we not have this video? So, no, there is no science on my end. It's there are rules. If they have a horrible website, I give them a pass because that's one thing that I can enhance. But if they have bad reviews, that's it for me. That's the disqualifier.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like the power of reviews is great. I think in our business, what we found with homeowners in particular is they're getting more particular or maybe a little bit harder to manage.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that review process is a little bit scary for business owners because it's always like, held hostage, like, oh, I gotta get that review, and you're like, oh, crap. So I don't know if it's just a trend of people are more difficult, or I guess I wanted to hear from you. Do you see companies getting better, worse, or are homeowners' clients getting harder to manage?
No, it's a very good question.
I can see it both ways.
Very good question. I used to look at a market. So I punch in home renovation, Naples, Florida. Okay, 15 companies come up on the left side from Google, and I look at the reviews. One has 500, 5 A+, 5-star reviews. One has 2, and I used to always see a big disparity where a couple businesses would have great reviews. Everybody else horrible reviews. Now I'm not seeing that. It just struck me today. It's a great thing that you brought up because there are more and more markets and more sectors, whatever it is, law firms, dental offices, I don't care what the business is. Companies are catching on. And you're right. We are, as business owners, we are held hostage by it. And the only way to solve the problem is be good. Treat our customers right. You're going to get a whack job every once in a while, no question.
Yeah.
But everybody understands that, okay?
Yeah.
And you have to think about that in the estimate process too. Don't always be trying to get the dollar. One of the beauties of owning your own business is getting to fire a customer once in a while. And you know what? If I have every year I get one customer is just, all of a sudden is trying to be, Dino De Laurentiis, the greatest producer in America, and they never had a video in their life. I just have to say goodbye. And so, the money doesn't mean that much. So that's all I can say. To your point, yes, they are getting better. Companies are getting better because they are being held hostage.
Mm-hmm.
Well. Yeah. Okay, I guess that then the review thing it's a good thing. I mean, it's a good thing. I just always want companies' integrity to shine through, and sometimes I worry that reviews are a little bit fake, and in a lot of websites they are. You have family friends, and you have things that you have buddies do it or whatever. But I think as long as you have history there, then the reviews will kind of shine through, and people ought to be able to see who's worth it and who's not.
Yeah, I mean, for a consumer who might be watching this, it's just, you've got to look, and look. I agree with you. I see fake reviews every day. And now at this point in my evolution, I can spot them really well. But I remember having I sold a company to a flooring company one time, and a woman answered the phone, and she turned to her husband, who I later found out, and said, all those fake reviews we put up must have worked. That's what she said. That just killed me. It's like, wow, they got me. And, I was like, wow, they had 40 great reviews. And I thought, wow, it's still to this day haunts me. I didn't sell them the video, but it still was like, oh man, you're 100% right. It still happens. And, if you're ever tempted to do that, be careful, because there's guys like me out here looking for companies that do that.
Yeah, got it.
She was probably in the wrong line of work. She should have been a writer and would have been a successful millionaire.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you so much for joining us today. We want to jump into our zone out portion where we just ask a couple fun questions, get to know you a little bit better. So the first one is as a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I think from the time I was about 13, I wanted to be a news anchor, because I got a chance to be the announcer at the Little League football field, and I was somewhat good at it. And a couple adults told me I was good at it. From that moment on, I wanted to be a sports guy. I became a sports guy. One of my first jobs was sports, and I just found it so boring. And the news anchor got sick, and they had me fill in for the news anchor, and they gave me his job. So I love news, but that was what I wanted to be.
That's amazing.
Wow. I think you landed in a good spot. I mean, you could tell that you're doing the right thing. So second one is you have your own late night talk show. Who do you invite as your first guest?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I think Warren Buffett. That's who I would invite. I think Warren Buffett is I just love because he's such a realist. I was watching a video just yesterday, and he was like, all these people with projections. I'm sorry. He just boils it right down. Mm-hmm. If you use a product and you like that product, and lots of other people use that product, and the company is run by quality people, that would be something good to invest in. Don't ride the market up and down. Don't wait for it to drop. Don't wait for it to. I love that. I would love to interview Warren Buffett. I would go on and on and on for hours with Warren Buffett. I don't know if that's interesting. That's who I'd interview.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's very interesting.
Well, I love that too, because some of the people that I was mentioning to you earlier, some of the people that we feel would be the most complicated or intimidating maybe are the ones who they've done it for so many decades that they can simplify it. They're real. It's
yeah.
Exactly.
You don't have to filter through all the other stuff.
Yeah.
And then who is or was the most influential person in your life?
I have to say my mom, because she owned a small little employment agency for 40 years, mostly getting secretaries jobs. Company would call up, say, hey, I need 3 secretaries, Phyllis, and my mom would get them a job. And the company would pay the commission, and and that's how it worked. The person would pay a commission. And she used to say to me, don't build yourself a good job, build yourself a company. To this day, I still talk to her on the phone. She still smokes a pack of Pall Malls a day, and she's got this raspy voice. And she's like, first thing out of her mouth, how's business? And she was, a shark in business. She always was a person who loved business and selling and making money. And she never made a lot of money. She made herself a great job that she was able to raise, 5 kids. But to this day, when she's gone, I'll miss those conversations where she'll say, why don't you try this? She's thinking about my business.
Right.
And what do you think that, this new tax thing is going to mean to you? Is that going to hurt us? What do you think? Are they going to put you out of business? Stuff like that. To have that conversation with your 87-year-old mom in Philadelphia, and I'm in Atlanta, it's great. So
yes.
Awesome. That's a good answer.
Sounds like a great person.
Well, thanks again, Rich, so much for joining us. Those are good insights. Hopefully some of these business owners will eat that up. If people want to get a hold of you, is it best to go to your website? Is it Rich Noonan Television? Or no, bestofbesttelevision.com?
Yes, it's a long thing to type in, bestofthebesttelevision.com or just
Okay.
richnoonan.com. And my last name is Noonan, all N's as in Nancy, Noonan, Noonan, richnoonan.com. Okay?
Awesome. Thanks so much. Good luck
Thanks,
with
guys.
everything, and we appreciate what you're doing for the industry.
Yes, so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, Rich. So we were just mentioning after we got off the call with Rich how much the video that he's made for Three Generations Improvements and U.S. Construction Zone, how much they've meant to our family. And, you know, it's been fun for you guys. It came out of the blue.
Mm-hmm.
I love how he does investigative reporting and how that's, you know, all in the background of what he does and why he's successful. So he researches companies, creates these videos, and then presents them to the business owners. And so for you guys, and for myself being, you know, a little bit outside of the company, but still having been a major primary part of it as you've developed the company since 2006, it was heartfelt and moving and just an incredible honor to watch someone almost take your history and put it to video. I mean, it's just incredible. So I will always be thankful for Rich for that.
I agree. It was very emotional, and you know, I think the best part about it is that it's unsolicited. So, and just like what we're trying to do when we roll out our In the Zone awards is that we want it to be, you know, peer nominated or unsolicited. No one is applying for the award, or no one is saying I think I deserve the award. He's finding it himself, and then he's awarding. So I think getting it from that perspective always makes it feel more powerful and more useful, because it's not, again, we didn't sign up for the award. I didn't nominate my dad for the award. It was out of the blue. So I think that's always makes me feel better, I think. Mm-hmm. And the other thing too I was struck by is, just like all of our podcast guests so far, and we just keep this rolling, is he loves what he does, and he landed in the perfect spot for the perfect time. And it seems like everybody we've talked to so far is the exact same way. They love what they do. They love talking about it. They're good at talking about it. They can articulate everything, and you're just left kind of going, dang it, he's good at it.
And I think it speaks to being an observer in life. You know, you look around, you notice what could be improved on or what's missing. And a way to make businesses better, you take your talents and gifts and time and, you know, put those two together, and you create these niches that are just so beneficial for everyone in the industry.
Yeah.
And it's really no more than that. I know that that's very simplistic, but it is, you know, being a conscientious observer of life, noticing what's missing, and then seeing, could I potentially fill that void?
Yeah.
And I think that's what he did, and he took that opportunity of failure, which we've talked about also.
Jeez.
You know, that that's another thing that all of these people have in common. They were not successful right off the bat. Yeah. I know when you guys got started with Three Generations, they began the business. I know it had been a long time coming, but they began the business in 2006. And a lot of listeners probably remember the crisis of 2008-9, you know, when the market just
it wasn't
crashed under everybody. And so to have moved through that successfully, it wasn't because, you know, you were already this enormous successful business. It was just the day-to-day walk through staying consistent with your values, staying consistent with showing up and hard work, and you know.
Yes. No, I agree. It also makes me want to do more videos, because like the way he describes the story part and the feeling, and you're like, yeah, that is very true. Most people do get very moved with that movie, or really it's the story when it's like a true story, and you see it in person and you see the actual person going through the story. It's way more moving for me than it is reading it out of a book.
Right. Or on a
website. Because it's real life, and these are real people and real businesses. So yeah, like I said, I think he's onto something, and I'm surprised that there's not maybe more of them doing it like him, where he does the investigation himself it just seems like there's a lot of people who are like, hey, I produce videos, give me 5-10 grand, and you're like, whoa,
Yeah. Hey.
yeah, wait.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I had a great time. Hopefully,
Terrific.
hopefully you guys did as well, and we appreciate you listening to In the Zone. And I still am Jeremy.
And I'm still Valerie.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I do tend to change. Jeremy knows. So.
See you next time. Bye.
You've been listening to In the Zone with Jeremy and Valerie Owens. Be sure to subscribe to In the Zone and stay in the know with the best minds in the construction industry. To nominate an innovator or change maker in the construction industry, connect with your management peers, and stay up to date with construction industry news, be sure to visit usconstructionzone.com.